All right, Brooks. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brooks Ellis, I'm the Senior Vice President of Hospitality Operations at Evolution Parking and Guest Services. I've been in the parking industry for right around a little bit more than 25 years, and started out as a valet, running cars down in South Florida, and fell in love with it. And then, 25 years later, and a little bit of career progression, I'm here running operations at Evolution.
Awesome. And I guess that's actually awesome to hear that you've done that the whole career. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like everyone in hospitality is kind of like that. It's like you don't have people who kind of come into it later. They're like literally the successful ones like yourself are all very like kind of like, yeah, this is where I started and I had that love for it. And I feel like I hear people like talk about that a lot, which is like, they're the people that kind of are able to promote and graduate through the ranks are very much like there's this intangible love there.
Yeah, Jim Collins talks about, cult-like culture, and it's alive and well in the parking industry. When you go to the events at the different associations, you see the same faces. Everybody's inspired by the same activity and kind of in the same quest for excellence and differentiation ultimately. But it's a healthy competition, and honestly, at those events, it feels like you're surrounded by friends instead of competitors. Yeah. So it's a cool industry.
That's awesome. And I suppose on that, and for you in particular, like, what do you think are like your three biggest roadblocks, when it comes to your job? Like, what are they?
Yeah, so
problems, roadblocks, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're growing all over the country right now, right? So next week, I'll actually be week after next, I'll be in Seattle, Washington. So it's about the farthest I could get from our offices.
Tell me about
it. So that geography presents a challenge, right? And we're entering into new markets all the time. Every month, we're entering into a new market. And so finding talent that aligns with our culture and our vision and really our values can be a challenge for sure. Doing a phone interview and connecting with somebody, thousands of miles away, it's really difficult to get to the core of who they are and what's important to them and how that integrates with what we want to do here at Evolution.
I hear. Oh, sorry, go on. Do you have
no, I was just going to say, that, and then that coincides with a lot of our clientele, right? So a couple of weeks ago, we opened a Ritz-Carlton property. We opened another one. We started some of our remote operations with a Waldorf Astoria in a really challenging market. And so our clients are also, pressing us for excellence, even though we're, far from our core and still have to be able to deliver on that great experience, right? So it's not just finding the leadership, it's about finding every associate that really understands who we are, what's important, and is willing to do the work to achieve that excellence.
It's interesting you say that, because as much as like my podcast and I try to veer away from mentioning staffing hiring all the time, because that's what I sell. I feel like every single person I speak to is like, number one, staffing, like just getting people. Number two is like quality, like promotable type talent that they can get, that they need to run operations themselves. Do you feel like they're just like so unbelievably core to what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. So our product, right? Our widget is people. It's the service we provide. It's the people that provide it. And the difference between having the right people and not having the right people is the ability to maintain that agreement, that contract with that partner. Without the right people that understand our mission, our values, our goals, what we're trying to accomplish, and how we want to do it, we can't do what we promise to be able to provide. So there is no alternative to finding the very best people. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of amazing. Like 18 months ago, before I even came into this space, I didn't even know. I mean, I anecdotally knew just by going to restaurants or going into hotels where you hear them talk about like, or that they're like lightly staffed and there's a whole post-COVID sort of environment. I mean, I guess for you, like, what do you see are like emerging trends in hiring, say, since COVID, in particular, like how you hire like your more flexible hourly workers?
Well, I'll tell you this. One thing I've recognized, and honestly, it was the thing that brought me to Evolution. I spent 20 years with a different organization. And what brought me to Evolution was I was watching I was going to hotels with my wife and my family, and we were staying at places that I had stayed at for many years and been wowed by the experience and how they provided just a superior level of hospitality and service. And it was gone. We were seeing trash, rolling across the floor like a tumbleweed in the desert, all over the place at luxury hotels. We were seeing, the bartenders screaming across the bar for takeout orders instead of, having that luxury language and that feeling of a resort escape. And I wanted to get it back. And honestly, I think that's a draw for us as an organization too, for talent. We only do one thing. We do hospitality. We run hotels and luxury residential, and that's it. We don't get distracted outside of that. And I think there's a magnetism that we create with our level of service expectation for our team and just the level of excellence that we expect from everybody, that it's drawing great talent towards us, which is awesome, right? It's great to have good people coming to find you, but I think that's such an opportunity for businesses today. We're spending all kinds of money on recruiting platforms and trying to figure out ways to find good people, but good people find you if you have a great product and you have a great experience, both for the employment experience, but also for the product that you sell to the marketplace. That excitement generates some buzz, and that's how I believe we'll find great people into the future as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I hear that a lot of, especially from like, say, restaurants in particular, where they're obviously in an insane battle for talent, and you hear brands, especially franchise groups, like how can they be like sort of the Chick-fil-A, where they basically have all inbound of very talented teenagers, young people who really want to work there, where you never hear people mention other types of brands that you probably think of that like would never be a dream destination for sort of a job. And so there's obviously something there in their employee experience, either in their onboarding experience, in their hiring, or in the way they pay, in terms of the benefits. And so my question to you is like, what do you see are like, see, you're thinking about this from an employee experience perspective and like your employee brand. So I'm curious your take here, which is, how do you think, what do you see are like emerging trends that you're looking to sort of capitalize on for your brand?
Yeah, I think a big one is pay. I think a lot of people shy away from that, but I don't think we do. We oftentimes enter markets and we're paying, a 20-30% premium against our competitors and their wages. But you mentioned a great one, right? With Chick-fil-A. And a lot of times when we're doing remote market research and we're trying to understand what we have to pay to be competitive in that market, that's who I look to, right? Because they're finding the type of talent that we would love to have on our team, people that care about what they do and care about the product that they're delivering, and they pay more. And that's how they get those people. There's no secret to that, right? So it's look, people will pay for great service. People will pay for a great experience. So I believe, a lot of businesses will find that, just like we do, that when you pay more, you get a higher level of caliber of talent. And it's not just the line level, entry level positions, right? We want to get people that come in and they want to stay and they want to grow and they want to build on their careers. And once you get them, they'll recruit their friends for you. So you kind of, I guess it's the easy way out to say, pay better and you'll get better people. But I've seen it work for us all around the country.
That's actually quite interesting. And I mean, obviously, it sounds obvious, which is like pay people more and you'll get more demand for the roles. Like, yeah, of course. But obviously, culture eats process and pay for breakfast as well. You know what I mean? Like right. You can pay people, but you have to find the right people. And you mentioned a good point there, which was like, you can hire good people who will refer good people to you. And so my question to you is like, how do you think about, retaining that type of good staff then? And instead of just like hiring, how do you think about retaining? Do you guys have like, what do you do for like a great work culture? What do you do in terms of policies or like processes that you have internally to really keep those great people?
Yeah. So we're a young company. We're growing all across the country, like I said, right? So process and procedure is evolving, and there's a lot of autonomy that comes with that. A mentor of mine many years ago used to call it corporate entrepreneurialism. So it's this idea that there is structure and there is a right way to do things, but it's okay to venture outside of that, if in your environment there's a challenge that you want to solve uniquely or something like that, and you have that autonomy. So I think, our culture is is forming as we grow. But one thing I think that's integral about who we are as an organization is we do allow that autonomy, right? You can come in and you can do things the way you believe. You can put your stamp on the operation, right? And we think that uniqueness and that individuality is really, really important. We support it. But I mentioned I started out as a valet. A lot of our team started out as valets, and there's this desire, this draw to give back for what I've been given by many, many mentors that have helped me to ascend in my career. So we spend a lot of time, every week I'm doing trainings for our up and coming developing talent. And we have all these opportunities, just like, I guess most large companies do, for people to get on demand training. But then we couple that with live in-person training. We partnered with Forbes a long time ago, and it's pretty unique in the industry. We've also leveraged their trainers to be able to come in and do in-person trainings with our team. So there's some value that we give back to our team that they can take with them and go somewhere else and leverage that, that training, that experience to benefit them as individuals in their career. And that's really, really core to my belief in leadership, that we have to give back to have good people that want to stay.
It's interesting because we alluded to it at the beginning. Like if people who are in hospitality for so long have this sort of love for it, and it's like you're talking about giving back now. I had the CEO of Pizza Factory, which they're based down in Southern California rather, and they're like 130 locations, and I had the CEO on, and it was like that was her sort of like personal modus operandi, where she would like help the franchisees that she felt like were like embodying that brand for her, like how to buy the franchise from her. As she helped scale them, it was like her way of giving back, in a sense that she started in like a donut factory, took over a donut store, and then found herself into pizza. And it's like, that sort of that kind of nuanced love you have for it, because it's like there's so much to hospitality that you can love about it, and there's so many different factors. And to be a success like yourself, to be able to like scale 20 years in this very particular part of hospitality, and then create a process and a program internally in your company to help people train and upskill, like that's phenomenal. Like I have to say, like, as in, I don't hear many. You're the first person that has articulated like actual training in all the podcasts I've spoken to so far. Now, I'm sure people have those, but the fact that you're speaking to it here versus other people not speaking to other things is quite interesting to me, because I never normally hear that. Like, it's very much, I feel like when you hear of like the online training, the on-demand courses training, etc., the upskilling, it's very much like a kind of like, almost like the preserve of like large tech companies that have lots of cash to spend to be able to do that in the first place. So it's great to hear that you guys are also doing that, especially as you grow, because it's not only trying to look new store openings, new acquisition of talent, but also like, we need to, such a great focus on keeping the existing talent that you have today. And I suppose on that, like, when you think of like the job market as a whole, because it sounds to me like you've got very competent, very good sort of managerial class in the organization that you have today. How do you think about the job market today? Like, is it strong? Are people coming to poach your guys? Are you like struggling to get the people for the new store openings? Like, what's your kind of picture of the job market?
Yeah, it's really, really challenging, because I think, we're hiring a leader that oftentimes has experience extensively in our market, in our industry, or somebody who's up and coming in the hospitality industry in some other sector, right? And oftentimes that means we have to do that training, right? So they haven't had, decades of experience in leadership roles. Oftentimes, they're moving up from, a line level position to a supervisor to a manager. So there's a lot to learn there. And I think those companies that are providing that structure, they're going to, again, they're going to get that magnetism where people look to them because they've seen other people have success in those programs. And there's no mystery about, when you read through how the newer generations are looking at organizations and where they want to go work, they're not afraid to move around and find that right opportunity, right? So, they also talk a lot. When I was coming up in the industry, talking about pay and talking about wages was so taboo and like not something that you would do. And today it's kind of a rite of passage, right? Like you're there. Everybody wants fairness and equality and transparency. And so those things I think are going to demand that employers change how they treat people and how they just treat the jobs, that they're out there offering to people too. And the understanding that this is a very hard work environment. It's 24 hours a day. We work on holidays, and oftentimes that means, leaving our loved ones when they're celebrating and spending time together. So there has to be some give back in order for people to feel like, they're going to give their all to that organization. Right. And so the market it's shouting what's most important. And I think some businesses are just, tone deaf to hear it because you want to go back to the old ways of paying the minimum and getting the maximum.
I think I honestly just, even my own anecdotal from doing, say, 12 of these in the last like 10 days or whatever, I think those old days are dead and gone. They're with, the poem, they're with O'Leary in the grave.
Right.
I think William Butler Yeats. Didn't think I'd be quoting that today. But I think hearing people, because I've had people on from like entertainment businesses that hire like hourly workers. I've had people from hotels, hourly worker in like the entertainment businesses we've spoken to. It's like we run concerts and people aren't out of there until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Like how do we find people for that? We have hotel operators that need like night managers and night auditors, and they're like, how do we find this kind of talent? And it's interesting that same for you. It's like, you need to be able to find those sort of like team players to understand that like, it's a 24/7 kind of job. Like you're like when everyone's taking time off, that's when you're working, and it's like these kind of upside down social hours are if you want to thrive in this business, and thus finding those people that can kind of thrive in those sort of scenarios or want to thrive. I think it's interesting as well that you met like newer generation in the sense that like, we all know what that means, whereas that's Gen Z. And not their fault. But I'm curious your take on what you've seen thus far in terms of like in a post-COVID world where they didn't have the sort of teenage rite of passage of like slinging pizza in a pizza shop. They had 3 years of not working and now coming into hourly workers as a kind of more mature late teen, early 20s. What do you see are some of the kind of key differences there in your role today?
Yeah. So I think as an organization, you have to provide an environment that allows people to have fun. And you mentioned a key term that's so important to me in teamwork. And how they, it's interesting. A few of our most recent LinkedIn posts have been from our employees celebrating each other when they've come together for a big event and they've helped out at a location that wasn't their home location. And they've had the opportunity to go not only experience something new and do something in a different environment, but to be able to collaborate with their team and provide that, that level of service as a disparate group of individuals that get to come together. There's nothing, in my belief, that's more compelling than that opportunity to serve, but not just, your guests and your client, but your teammates. And that's been huge for us. We've seen that and again, they're saying it on their own. It's their own LinkedIn presence. It's not a corporate initiative. It's just something that they're so compelled to want to talk about celebrating that they're doing it on their own. And I think that's a part of the movement that we're seeing.